Well, mysterious illnesses are now plaguing some of America's bravest. When a catastrophic earthquake and tsunami hit Japan's Fukushima nuclear power plant back in 2011, the U.S. Navy especially raced to the disaster zone. Now, 3 years later, some of those first responders say they are suffering from unexplained illnesses like cancer, bleeding, and hair loss. They say Fukushima is to blame. Dr. Devi Nampiaparampil is an associate professor of anesthesiology and rehabilitation at NYU's School of Medicine and has taken a look at this. Some of the sailors say, they were perfectly fine, helped out with the rescue after the leak, and then all of a sudden they are coming down with mysterious illnesses, hair loss, fainting spells, the like. Does it sound like it's the possibility of radiation poisoning?
It could be. It definitely could be. I mean, people can have those symptoms. They can develop cancers. I mean, our soldiers, they risk their lives to try to jump into a disaster zone and help people, but they have an even bigger challenge ahead of them. In order for them to prove this, because radiation exposure and nuclear radiation especially, it's so rare, they actually have to first try to prove their case, prove that it's not genetics, prove that there are no other environmental factors, and then they have to show the extent of the harm or damages, which is even more difficult because they might not have all the harms yet. Like, they may develop problems or cancers later in the future.
And part of the problem is that radiation poisoning is fairly hard to study because it just hasn't happened that often in world history.
Exactly. So we can only really look at Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Chernobyl. I mean, there's some data that's been collected, but it's hard to know exactly what the cutoff levels are. How do you know what radiation level is safe?
One of the issues is that, TEPCO, the Japanese power company, apparently, if they were aware of how bad things were, they weren't telling the Japanese government. Yeah. So the U.S. Navy sails in there with the Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier battle group, and they apparently didn't know how high the radiation levels were.
Exactly. So it's really difficult because there's the electric company's involvement, Japan's involvement, and then also the Navy itself. How much responsibility is each party going to take for these soldiers, and why should the soldiers have to try to figure this out themselves?
Another study that caught our eye has to do with cesarean sections, and apparently the discovery that cesarean births are more likely to result, first of all, in babies who tend to be obese.
Yeah, so we're not exactly sure what the cause of that is, but it could be if you're delivered through the belly as opposed to vaginally, that you're exposed to different bacteria. So if you have different bacteria in your gut and you grow up that way, then maybe you absorb or digest foods differently. So your weight gain over time could be different. The other thing is that, why do people have C-sections? Why do mothers have them? It might be because there's already predisposing health problems in the fetus, in the baby, or in the mother. So it could be those health problems that lead to the obesity later.
I know that the medical world has been trying to reduce the number of C-sections, has it not?
Exactly. I mean, it's supposed to be safer if you deliver vaginally, but there are exceptions. I mean, there are times if the mother is at high risk for developing a complication or the baby's not getting enough oxygen, that you do want to proceed with a C-section.
Another study that obviously involves women has to do with birth control pills and multiple sclerosis. They're finding that women who take birth control pills are more apt to develop MS?
Well, it's not a surprise that hormones are involved here because more women are actually prone to develop multiple sclerosis. Now, this is another thing that's difficult to study because multiple sclerosis is so rare. So we don't know for sure why people are taking the birth control pills. We assume it's because they're sexually active, but it could actually be for other things, like they have irregular menses. Some people have acne or other hormonal abnormalities, maybe ovarian cysts. So we don't know if those hormonal abnormalities are predisposing them to the MS or if it's the birth control pills.
So no proof that the birth control pills are actually bringing on MS?
No proof. It's just correlated. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a cause.
More study for sure. Dr. Devi.
It's always good to see you.
Good to have you in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jenna.